back to the program. Well, I'm joined now live out of our Melbourne studio by Liberal MP Tim Wilson. Thanks very much for your company.
Thank you, Peter. I'm hoping I'm going to get a little more than 29 seconds this time.
I'm pretty sure we'll get there, Tim Wilson. I don't think we need to repeat that one.
I'm going to run it out to 29, 28,
Don't tempt me, although you won't come back off my show if I did it now. All right. Genuinely, though, the only question you'll get on same-sex marriage, and then we can move on. You wanted to move on from this issue and, you know, get this sorted and avoid it lingering for too long. That was your preference, I'm pretty certain. How's that going?
We're going to have 4 months of debating the issue in the public square, and my views are very well known on the record, Peter. I support a change in the law, and if you want to have a discussion around religious freedom, what you should actually do is vote yes, because then you'll get a Liberal national government considering how to make sure we balance out the competing rights from a change in law. A vote for no is a vote for the Greens and Labor to do it when there is a change of the government, whenever that is. Bill Shorten has said that if he's elected Prime Minister, he'll deal with the issue in the first 100 days, and you'll accept the Labor-Green solution to marriage for same-sex couples. A vote for yes is a vote for the Liberal national government of understanding and taking proper consideration of advancing the rights of all Australians, including same-sex couples and people who believe in religious freedom.
Well, see, it's hard to disagree with that, quite frankly, because, you know, that's the whole point that,
No, it's a pretty straightforward point.
Yeah, I would have thought so. But having said that, though, there's, you know, an ever-building no case. Tony Abbott's leading it and bringing lots of different things into the mix. I wonder whether there's a problem here for the Yes campaign. I know I said I'd ask one question, but on indulgence, one more. The problem seems to be that there is a lack of clarity about what the process will be in terms of the legislating of same-sex marriage beyond just having the postal survey to conclude whether people are for or against it in principle. So Craig Kelly was basically expressing some concerns about this onto the point with Christina Keneally and I. We don't know exactly what the religious protections will be, for example. Is that a muddying of the waters, or is that a fair point?
No, these are the issues that the Parliament should consider. I mean, I don't think it's a good thing to put religious freedom on the ballot paper, and that's what obviously some people are seeking to do. That's not what I'm seeking to do. A vote for yes is a vote for the Parliament to then properly consider these issues, balancing out the need for same-sex couples to be able to access civil marriage while also making sure that we protect religious liberty. But that will be done through a parliamentary process. The government has actually outlined what will happen. It will allow the facilitation of private members' bills to consider these issues, and it will be left to the Parliament consistent with the tradition of a free vote.
Whether we're talking about the issues that are going to linger on over the next few months, whether it's the same-sex marriage postal survey, whether it's the citizenship...
I think we're past 29 seconds, by the way.
Yeah, so we've moved on now, and we're in the middle of moving on to some other issues. You know, whether it's that issue, whether it's the citizenship fiasco, Tim Wilson, whether it's the yet-to-be-determined government response to the Finkel review, which presumably the party room will talk about sooner or later this year. What chance is there, do you think, with all of these issues brewing, for the government to fix its deficit in the polls of 54-46, which I remind you is 18 down, 12 to go?
Well, I think the government has a good potential to do that. I mean, let's face it, the next 6 months are going to be messy. We know that. We've got all the remainder of this year. We've got the postal survey. There's obviously the High Court considering the issues around citizenship, which are completely out of our control. But the critical question is that are we going to have a process where everybody's going to act consistently? And I know Bill Shorten's been out there today swinging around saying that he shouldn't have to prove his citizenship when he's been going around demanding it of others. And that's the kind of hypocrisy that we see from Bill and his preparedness to hold one people to one stand.
Well, hang on, Tim Wilson, hang on. On that,
that's why why it's been called Shifty Shorten these days.
On exactly that point, he is refusing to provide evidence of renouncing his British citizenship in exactly the same way that the Justice Minister Michael Keenan is refusing to provide evidence of having renounced his. Now, I believe both of them. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is Michael Keenan isn't running around everywhere demanding everything of everybody while Bill Shorten is, and that's where the shiftiness in his position comes in, not just on this issue, but on lots of issues. You hear it all the time where he has one stand and expects something of others. But the critical question really comes down to what the High Court is going to do. We don't know what's going to happen, but in the meantime, the government's actually focusing on the issues that actually affect every Australian, particularly around, as you say, dealing with the challenge around electricity prices, and making sure that we put in place a sensible policy framework for the first time, really, let's be frank, in a decade, where the focus isn't going to just be on cutting emissions, but what do we need to do to secure reliability, make energy affordable so people pay for affordable energy and reliable energy, as well as making sure we deal with environmental consequences.
One of the other issues that the government is looking to look at and deal with is the economy and ensure that it's as strong as possible, jobs and growth. Let's throw that in the mix. The former Treasurer, Peter Costello, though, he talks about massive imbalances in the economy. He would like to see, amongst other things, let's start with this though, he would like to see the Reserve Bank push interest rates north to deal with that. Your view?
Well, I say this cautiously because, of course, the Reserve Bank is an independent body, but my view is interest rates have been too low for too long, and I think it's had a seriously detrimental impact on particularly self-funded retirees. But because of quantitative easing, particularly in the United States, we've had a problem or the RBA's had a problem around raising interest rates. I think there is room to do that, but that's not ultimately the government's decision, as Peter would well know. But I think the RBA will be weighing these things up very seriously.
The other thing he's talked about is the worry that we do it on the revenue side, that is to say, try to balance the budget rather than on the spending side. He's taken a bit of an aim at the government for not doing enough on the spending side. Do you agree with him?
I cautiously disagree with him because we're not in the situation we were in 1996. The problems the government has around spending is around structural problems. The biggest growth, for instance, in spending is around support for people with disabilities, people who are in a difficult situation, who are not in that situation, their own circumstances, and don't hold any assets. The second largest group is people who are retiring, people over the age of 65, 67, who draw down on pensions, healthcare benefits, the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, as well as potentially aged care. So what we actually have to do is have a serious conversation, not just about spending, but also about how we raise revenue, because, as I said in my first speech in Parliament, I believe we have a tax system designed for the late 19th and early 20th century, and we need a tax system for the 21st century that's much more heavily focused on consumption-based taxation. So an increase in the GST, why won't the government go there? Well, it's not about looking at one tax and fiddling with it and saying that's a solution. We've got to look at... You just said an increase in consumption taxes. That's exactly what a GST is. I said a shift towards consumption taxes, but part of that also has to be addressing the competition around company tax rates and income tax rates. We live in a world where capital is mobile and talent is mobile, and the government's rightly being put an emphasis on cutting company tax rates because we want to attract capital into Australia, investment into Australia to create jobs, so we have more taxpayers to contribute to the share of the nation's wealth. And this is where, you know, Shifty Shorten again has been all over the place. Before he was when he was in government previously, he argued that we should be cutting company tax rates to attract investment, and now he's opposing every step of the way the government's sensible measures to get there. Are voters harder, and the media for that matter, harder on politicians today than we were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, do you think, Tim Wilson? I mean, the government have got its Gonski 2-point form package through. It got the legislation that the DD election was based on around the ABCC through. It has made changes to company taxes, not exactly what they wanted, but a compromise through the Senate. It's on the verge of getting media reform through by all accounts. I mean, there are achievements getting clocked up, but the media still go the government as a shambles. The public are penalising you according to the polls, and quite frankly, internal critics on the Conservative side of the party aren't exactly putting up in neon lights that they're impressed with the Prime Minister's performance. Are we tougher these days than we used to be on leaders? Well, I think the media is obsessed with cheap tricks and nonsense and distractions rather than core policy, and I think we've seen a really serious diminishing of media and journalists focusing on substantive policy reform. In fact, I rarely read a newspaper article in a newspaper these days that talks about what, firstly, identifying the problems the country faces, but then the policy solutions. Instead, we just have a lot of political commentary. Now, political commentary is easy. You can come and talk on Sky News all day if you want to on political commentary. You can write many articles at a very fast pace about political commentary of observations. But real policy and the real business of governing is hard work. And that's obviously what the government is doing and the Turnbull government is doing, in doing exactly getting those reforms through, pushing forward with company tax rates and getting something through the Senate. That's hard. It's not easy. It's not sexy, but it delivers outcomes for real people. The same is now being done in energy. The same is being done in media reform so that we can have a vibrant media sector and an increasingly diverse media age. But I'm the first to acknowledge that that will never be as exciting as, you know, what people are getting up to at a boozy night on a Saturday evening in Canberra. I think it's a task for journalists to rise to the occasion and actually do their service to the Australian community.
Tim Wilson, we appreciate you joining us for an extended interview here on Newsday. Thanks for your company.
Thanks, Peter.
Cheers.